Fala galera, welcome to episode number 4 of the Strategy Foundation series. In this one, we're going to discuss attributes and metrics, two of the most important objects in strategy. I would say the foundation for building other objects. If we don't have attributes, if we don't have metrics, we won't be able to build anything else like dashboards, bots, things that are more complex and that helps users have a better understanding of their data. So let's go ahead and get started with attributes and metrics. So to start understanding these concepts, I'm back here to Snowflake. There is a table called Dimension Product. Notice that this table, as I explained in a former video, contains columns. So the columns like product ID, product name, brand, category, in business terms, they will become what we call in strategy as attributes. But that's a little bit more complex because it's not the column itself that becomes the attribute. Sometimes it's a combination of columns. For example, in here we have product ID and product name. Those two columns together, they form what we call an attribute. The attribute, in this case, being product. Product ID and product name, they will become what we call as attribute forms. So an attribute is made of attribute forms. In this case, columns are the attribute forms, or later we'll see they become expressions to those forms. And then the values that we see here, we will be calling then attribute elements in strategy. Notice that in the fact sales table, product ID is being referenced. So that's the way to link the product ID column here to the product ID column in the dimension table. Now, when it comes to metrics, well, metrics, they are here in the fact table. They are the columns that contains something that we can perform calculations. For example, total sales amount, quantity sold. We can sum those things, or we can ask for an average of sales amount, of quantity sold, and of course there are other columns like discount amount. Those things that we can perform calculations, in a nutshell, they are our metrics in strategy. So before we continue, just going back here and just doing a little recap. What an attribute is. Basically, an attribute is a business concept, some things that we can group metrics by. For example, if I want to group my metrics, my revenue by product, product is the attribute. Revenue, on the other hand, is the metric. Those are the two main important concepts that we need to have in mind at this point. Now, how do I build? How do I create my attributes and metrics in Workstation? I'm back here in Workstation, and as you can see, under the modeling blade objects, we don't have any attributes and metrics created at this point. So let me show you how do we create that. I'm going to click here, plus button, to create a new object. This time I want to create a new attribute. Notice that there are other objects, but again, the two most important ones are attributes and metrics. Let me start by attribute. Click in this one, choose select, and here is where we define the attribute name. So this one, let me call it product, using the example that I mentioned before in Snowflake. Now remember, an attribute called product contains one or multiple forms. So in this case, I'm going to click the add new form icon here, and this is going to be the ID. So what is the ID form for the product attribute? See, if I go here to the dim product table, I click here, and then I can find the product ID column, the one that you see right here. All I have to do is double click on it, and then it becomes an expression. This expression can become something a bit more complex, but as of now, we just need this, and we're ready to click done. But remember, an attribute contains more than one form in most cases. So let me go ahead and click add a new form. And that's going to be the description. Notice that right now it's already pointing to the dimension product. I click in here, And then I want to grab the product name. That's the one here. Click twice. You see the expression, the column name being highlighted. And that's pretty much it. Right now I have my product ID and my product desk, or product name in this case, mapped to a single attribute called product. I'm going to go ahead and click Done. Once this is done, my attribute will be published. Let me close this window, click Save to save the changes. And normally we save those attributes in the schema objects folder in that project that I created in a former video. There is an attributes folder in here. Double click this one, and there we go. We can just go ahead and click Save. All right, so let me close this window again. And here I have my attribute. For the remaining of the video, I won't be creating the attributes step by step because it will take much longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to start talking about metrics. So let me continue with metric creation. As you notice, I already created a few other attributes here, which we will need later. But let's go to metrics. I'm going to click here again, plus button. And here you see that if I try to create a metric by default or on the first place, clicking select button here, it will not allow me to create this metric because in strategy, we have a concept called facts. All right? So we first need to create a fact to later create a metric. Let me close this one, go back here to the plus button, and then let me choose a new fact. This icon that you see right here. Click select button. So what a fact is in strategy, it's not a fact table. By the way, I'm going to select my fact table here. And then as you can see in the fact table, we have columns that are IDs for other attributes like sales channel ID, customer ID, date ID. I will need these for attributes later. But the sales fact that we need here, or the facts that we want to create, they are based on these columns that contains things that we can do or can perform additional calculation. For example, quantity sold. This is a column that I can sum or perform an average, things like this. I cannot do this with store ID. Total sales amount. Again, I can perform a sum here. I can perform an average. So these columns are my facts in the strategy. Let me go ahead and double click total sales amount, and let me call it revenue for the purpose of this one, or maybe total revenue. Actually, let me call it gross revenue. Click done. Later, I'm going to perform calculations to those objects, and then I'll have my metric. So I'm closing this one. Yes, it's being saved. This one I'm not saving in the attributes folder that you see here. Let me go back to the schema objects folder, facts folder, and then that's where I need to save this one, gross revenue. All right, so now I am ready to create my metric. Let me go ahead and click the plus button once more, double click metric, or just click once and type and click select. And once in here, you will see that now I have my first fact, gross revenue. Let me click this one, double click this one. And as you see here, it appears as a column. Now I can apply a formula to this column. In this case, I want to perform a sum. I want to sum that column, the gross revenue. And then the metric, I can call it sum of gross revenue, but normally we don't call it this way. We just call it gross revenue. We just use the final name, the business username that folks will use. So gross revenue, we are performing a sum on that column. We could be performing an average or maybe median, whatever function we want to apply. So let me click validate button below here. That's it, that's saved. Let me click OK. And let me go ahead and click the save button. All right, this one, again, I'm not saving a metric in the facts folder, not either in the schema objects folder. I need to go back to my project, PM demo Snowflake, and inside of the public objects folder, I have a folder called metrics. So it's here where I save my metrics. Double click in here, click the save button, and there we go. My metric is already saved. I can close this one now, right? And now I'm going to start seeing all my objects. If I go back here to the schema objects, actually to the folder, PM demo snowflake, public objects, and then metrics, this one here, my metric starts to appear here. I will create a few others, and then I'll finish with this video. Okay, so as you can see, I have now 4 metrics. Remember, I had to create 4 facts to have all these metrics available here. All of them, they follow basically the same formula. As you can see in net revenue, we're basically using a sum, right? So I'll be performing a sum on the net revenue fact. Could be an average, could be any other. Metrics can be way more complex because if you go and notice here, breakdown, we can have like level metrics, we can apply condition to metrics, we can work with transformation metrics, but that's another topic, maybe for an advanced video. Formatting, we can define if this net revenue metric will be using, for example, currency or any other type of formatting. And then later we also have a few options we can use in here. For this time, right now, I'm not going to do anything. Let me just close this one without any saving. All right. And that's much pretty. Just going back here to objects, and notice I have my attributes already available. If I navigate back to projects, and then if I go down here to the project itself, demo snowflake, under the schema objects folder, I have my base attributes in the attributes folder. They are all here. I created them separately, not in this video because it will take longer. I also have, if I go back here, facts, all 4 facts are here. Okay. Remember that in my case, I just double clicked on one of the columns, like quantity sold from the fact table. But these expressions here, this is a basic expression. I can add new expressions and I can create more complex expressions like calculations, multiplications between one column and another. So these are something we can do. But I'm not doing this right now. That's not the purpose of this video. Okay. Same thing with attributes, by the way. Those attributes that we see here, they are pretty standard, basic, but we can make them way more complex by adding new attribute forms. We can concatenate different columns from different tables. So that's also possible to do as well. But let's stay with the basics. Okay, I have my attributes, I have my facts, and finally I have my metrics. The 2 main ones being attributes and metrics. All right, so that's it for this video. Attributes and metrics, the cornerstone of your strategy analysis. Once we have them, we can start building our dashboards, our reports. They are very important for us. I hope you like this video. And again, as usual, I would say I'll see you at the next corner.